Hello, this is Angela with Parker's Permaculture. I hope you all are doing well and enjoying your spring. Today I would like to talk about a little bit of a sticky subject. Maybe not. Maybe y'all will be right on board with me, and I hope so. On this channel, I talk about all aspects of permaculture design, and that includes social permaculture. And social permaculture is looking at how we can apply the permaculture ethics of people care and fair share to everything that we do. How permaculture is not just about growing food, and it is not just about building, passive solar sustainable dwellings. It is about how we treat each other and how we help create a community and a planet that can help all people live an abundant and joyful life, right? In a way that also supports and regenerates the planet. All of that is interwoven together. So when I talk about social permaculture on this channel, I'm not getting political. I'm not sticking to permaculture. I'm actually diving into what permaculture is really about. And so today I would like to talk about a question that someone asked me a while back, which is, why do I not call myself a homesteader? Now, a couple of years ago, I had decided to make a spin-off channel where I talked about the fact that I've been a homemaker for more than 20 years and all of the kind of domestic skills and philosophy that I have built in that kind of lived experience. So I tried to make a separate channel initially, which is really difficult. So I had a separate channel and I was struggling making all of these videos essentially for free because YouTube changed the way that it monetizes channels. So what I ended up doing is folding that channel back into this channel, and I just have a regular Friday segment where I discuss that topic. So when I was trying to make this channel, I was crowdsourcing, like, what should I call my new channel? What should I call it? And I got all kinds of suggestions that were wonderful and helpful and quirky and what have you, whimsical. And the term homesteader kept coming up because it's not wrong. Like, a lot of the skills I use are things that we think of as homesteading, right? Canning, baking, preserving food, how to use the things that you grow in your garden to feed your family and keep your budget small, how to make clothes, mend clothes, those kinds of things, right? We kind of think of those things as homesteady skills. But I pushed back on that a little bit, and somebody asked me during that process, why won't you call yourself a homesteader? So I thought maybe I would address it in this video here, as I sit on my squeaky chair. So the term homesteader was coined back in 1862 with the Homesteading Act in America. And I don't know, if you are not from the US, you may have a different connotation and a different sense of this word than folks here in America do. The Homesteading Act allowed, predominantly white, but allowed settlers to basically come in and take land without having to pay for it. And the reality is that land belonged to indigenous communities, and we just came in and took it from them. And so it is essentially, something that we as Americans can have this very pastoral notion about. We can have this kind of romantic idea of what the Homesteader Act is. Anyone from my generation growing up in the 80s read Laura Ingalls Wilder and, really loved the idea of being that prairie girl with her prairie bonnet and going out and, carving a home in the wilderness and being very DIY and that rugged individualism. That was very much romanticized in my childhood and in American culture for a very long time. But the truth of it is that notion and that reality of the Homesteading Act was rooted in the attempted genocide of the indigenous peoples of North America, right? And the displacement of those peoples. My husband's family was displaced from their land and marched on the Trail of Tears to the reservation in Oklahoma, right? And that has long-lasting impacts, being torn from your home, being stripped of the place where you are rooted, in order to make way for white settlers to come in and take your land. And you may say, Angela, this is no longer 1862. That's all in the past. Let's not think about it. I should probably bring my husband in to talk about it. His grandfather could have sat and talked with you all at length about what it means to be an Indigenous person who has been displaced and who has to live with the reality of reservation life and the reality of the fact that our government attempted a genocide and is continuing to enact injustice upon Indigenous people in North America. So it may feel very distant in the past to those of us who don't live with the consequences of it today. Now, I live with the consequences of it in a very different way. I live with benefits of the Homesteading Act, right? Some of my ancestors came over from Germany and from England and have reaped all of the benefits of generations of homesteading in the United States, generations of being able to come and claim land. You know, my grandpa's family were farmers in Iowa. My other grandpa's family were farmers in Indiana, with a long history of farming land that originally belonged to other groups of people, and it was stolen from them. When we examine the claim that this was all in the past and we need to just get over it and move on, I think it's worth noting that 98% of all farmland in the United States is owned by white people. And that is a lasting legacy of the Homestead Act. It's a lasting legacy of the way that we allowed white European settlers to come in and take land, and we denied access from settlers that were people of color. And we robbed the Indigenous peoples of the land that they had cultivated and cared for and stewarded for generation after generation after generation. We cannot deny that reality. If you look at the data, if you look who has access to land now, you can look at how that is still playing out today. And the ramifications of our actions in 1862 are still experienced by Americans today. Another thing that I think of when I imagine what a homesteader looks like in my head, I realized that those folks back then were probably fairly oblivious to what they were doing to the Indigenous community, and they were buying all kinds of propaganda from the government about what Native peoples were like, right? All kinds of horrible stereotypes and savage tropes, and how, even though folks were ignorant of what they were doing, it still had a lasting impact. But this is the image that I get in my head when I think of a homesteader. I think of that cheesy movie with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, Far and Away. I'm really dating myself. In Far and Away, you have your literal flag and they're having their little land race and you're planting your flag in the ground and you're staking your territory. This is where I'm going to homestead and this is my kingdom, right? I will be the little lord of my own little kingdom and I will do it all by myself. I will build my home. I will, have my crops and my animals, and I will create a successful, homestead all by myself. And I am an island. I am my own master of my own destiny. That American sense of rugged individualism. That's what I think of when I think of a homesteader. And for me, I am not interested in rugged individualism. I'm not interested in individualism and self-sufficiency at all. I'm interested in community interdependence. I'm interested in building those local food economies, fiber economies, the ways that we as communities can support each other on a local level and therefore become more resilient. I'm not interested in trying to do everything myself. That way of visualizing a homesteader and what I think of when I imagine what a homesteader would be like doesn't interest me at all. I don't want the connotation that I'm a rugged individualist. I don't want the connotation that I endorse or approve of, land grabs from Indigenous people and, the perpetuation of generations of attempted genocide. I'm not interested in that. That may be something that's controversial. I hope that it wouldn't be for those of us in permaculture circles. If we are interested in social justice, if we're interested in people care, we have to look at how we utilize our permaculture. And that can be in big ways in terms of how we, give back in the ways that we are interested in, perhaps like reparations, or we're interested in environmental justice, things like that. But it can be in small ways in terms of thinking about the words that we choose and how they have meaning and they have implications, and the words that we choose can shape our outlook. And for me, I'm not interested in using that word homesteader to describe myself. I'm not interested in embracing anything that the reality of the Homestead Act wreaked upon North America and the peoples of North America. I'm not interested in projecting an image that I'm an individualist at all, or that I'm interested in self-sufficiency. So I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry that it took me a few years to get around to it. Y'all may or may not believe it, but I keep a long list on my phone, both of video topics that I want to get to, but also questions that folks have asked that I think are worth answering. So, if you drop a question in the comments, I may not get to it now, I may not get to it next week, but maybe in 2 years I'll get to it. It's something that I think about, and I read through that list and I try and be really intentional about it. So thank you to the person who asked that question so long ago. I have thought about you many times and your question many times, and now I'm getting a chance to answer it. So if you have thoughts on what you call yourself, permaculturist is a little clunky, but I tend to call myself that. If you have thoughts on the term homesteader or the Homestead Act, if you have thoughts on reparations, I would love to hear about it down below. I will be back very soon. Please don't forget to check out the ways that you can support this channel and click like and subscribe. That would be the best way you could support this channel. That would be awesome. And I'll be back really soon. Thanks.